Nice to see all of your faces here today. A lot of people have suffered from post-lockdown weight gain, and now being on vacation has kind of exacerbated that. So I thought this would be a good topic. But before we start, I really just wanted to have a disclaimer, just for a few minutes, that any information I am providing about diet, if you have some medical conditions, you should speak to your doctor before you implement them. And there's no guarantees about anything I say. So anyway, I'm going to keep going. And also, one really important point is that everyone's different. We call the term in nutrition bioindividuality. So I'm going to mention some things that may work for you. They may not work for you, but I just kind of am providing some things that work for a lot of people. So I first wanted to just address the fact that COVID-19 has really changed our eating habits and triggered weight gain. There actually was a study done by WebMD. They actually conducted a survey in late May of men and women, over 1,000 men and women, and 47% of women and 22% of men surveyed mentioned they'd gain weight during lockdown for reasons varying from stress eating, extra alcohol consumption, which actually in April 2020, alcohol sales were up 200% over 2019, not exercising, or a combination of the above. So again, it was pretty evident by the fact that they were limiting number of cake mixes sold, number of frozen pizzas sold, number of bags of French fries at a lot of supermarkets by May, because those items were selling out faster than the produce. You could get a lot of produce, but not your junk food as easily. So basically, what should you do to manage your weight? And when I say manage your weight, I don't like to think of things as being diets, because that's short term. Basically, you should look at weight management as kind of a long-term thing. I like to help people find the foods that they enjoy eating and make sure that they can eat them at least occasionally. So you have kind of like the always foods and the sometimes foods, but you're not going on a diet with dramatic calorie decreases, because most likely studies have shown that you'll gain that weight back. You want a sustainable way of eating. That's why I call it weight management. So the first tip of the 5 is you can't outrun your mouth. So I know a lot of people have heard of the 80-20, an 80-20 rule applied to things. And in the case of weight management, basically 80% of your fitness, or the way your body is due to what and how much you eat, whereas 20% has to do with exercise. I'm going to talk a little bit more about specifics on what you eat, but that's just something to keep in mind, that if you're eating a junk food diet or a super high calorie diet, even if you're exercising a ton, most likely you're not going to have the body that you're hoping to have. So second tip is really to avoid the processed carbs. So I know that there are a lot of, if it's in a box basically, or a bag, you probably shouldn't be eating it, or at least not eating it all the time. They should be sometimes, occasionally food. So I think one thing that people talk about carbs a lot, and so a lot of what the classes, when I teach, I explain exactly what carbs are. So these are the processed carbs on the left. The potato chips, nachos or tortilla chips, French fries and cookies. Those are things that typically are processed, are made in factories. They're not containing whole foods in their natural form. They're using flours and using bad oils that aren't as healthy. So, and they tend to be very high in sugar and have a lot of additives. Whereas really the kinds of carbs you should be eating are the ones on the right. Fruit, even potatoes, starchy potatoes sometimes, sweet potatoes are even better. Obviously the best carbs, and this is the biggest surprise to a lot of people, that vegetables are carbs, but they're not high necessarily in grams of carbs per serving, like say a potato or a rice would be. They're lower in carbs per serving. So I recommend a lot of times that people avoid the processed carbs as much as possible. Eat zucchini zoodles instead of pasta, like the white flour pasta, or if they really want a flour pasta, go for a lentil flour, because that's more of a whole, that has a lot more protein. It has a lot more nutrients than a white flour pasta. And go for the lower sugar fruit, although fruit is better than eating everything on the left because it has fiber, so it takes longer for that sugar to get in your bloodstream versus an ice cream. But the lower sugar fruits tend to be berries and green apples. So those are some of the things to think about. I cannot, by the way, if you're posting any questions, I have trouble seeing them right now. So just Felicia or Malou, feel free to flag me. So number 3 is more of kind of a lifestyle thing than necessarily a food tip, and that is make healthy foods more convenient in your house. And conversely, make unhealthy foods less convenient. So talking about inconvenience, I'm sure you have a cupboard in your house or a pantry where your favorite crackers or cereal or cookies are. And most likely it's in a place that's kind of easy to get to. One trick to do, just something simple, is to move those things to a place that's a lot that you don't pass by all the time. That maybe it's on a high shelf, harder to reach, things like that, so that it's not in front of your face or you don't pass by it frequently. And at the same time, try and make your healthy foods more convenient. So a lot of times we reach for the things that aren't as healthy because it's in a box, it's easy to grab. And so, or maybe even you have individual serving bags of something that's not as healthy. So make those individual serving bags into something healthier in your refrigerator. One thing you can do is cut up fruit and put it in little containers, or even buy it at the store like this. You can, one thing I've seen actually for people at I went to a socially distant baby shower, and they had these little cups of hummus with vegetables stuck in the top. You could very easily do that for a couple of days and just have those cups in your fridge to grab. Also, you can make skewers out of fruit or out of vegetables. And these actually are also appealing to kids. If you have kids in the house, that will get them to eat fruit. I've noticed that like the presentation is all about getting kids to eat healthier foods if you've got fruits and vegetables. And then the other thing too to do to make healthy foods more convenient is meal prep. And I know it can be kind of a chore, but honestly, having a salad you can grab out of the fridge, especially if it's in a big mason jar, you can put the dressing even on the bottom, so it's just easy to shake and eat it, is great. I mean, just chop everything all up at once and then have a couple of days worth of salads. Or use leftovers, like grill a whole bunch of vegetables or a lot of meat on Sunday with your grilling, and then put them together into containers to eat the rest of the week. So that's another way to make healthy foods more convenient, unhealthy foods less convenient. And then number 4, eat protein with every meal. Protein is really, people talk about it, but it's really critical for us, especially as we age, to eat more protein. You can get a condition, and this is very common in the United States, called sarcopenia, because we lose muscle every year that we age. And sarcopenia often results when you're much older and you're getting hip fractures or other fracturing things when you fall down. So if you don't have those muscles to kind of hold those joints in place later in life, you're more likely to fall. So it's really important to continue eating a lot of protein as you age. Personally, I recommend that people eat 20 to 30 grams of protein each meal, which is really the equivalent to 3 to 4 ounces. Animal and fish protein sources are the best because they contain the correct amino acid profile, and amino acids are the building blocks for protein. So you need certain amino acids to make muscle, and animals tend to have more, animal protein has more of that, and that includes fish and eggs too when I say animal. And also animal protein has healthy fat too, so you feel more satiated when you eat protein. You won't need to eat as frequently. And And also the other thing about protein is when you're eating it and you're making muscle, basically 1 pound of fat only burns 2 calories. A pound of muscle burns 5 calories. So that's a great thing when you're thinking about, you're able to sit and burn more calories if you have more muscle than if you have fat. You don't even have to be exercising at the time. So I gave a couple of different ideas for how to, for protein sources here. On the lower right, I mean, I think sometimes a harder meal to have protein is breakfast. So these frozen sausages on the lower right, Applegate Naturals has a lot of different options. Those are frozen. They also have fresh, but the frozen ones are great because you can just heat them up in the microwave. They have chicken ones, pork ones, turkey also. You can also drink your protein. So I've got Trader Joe's broth up there on the upper right, and that has a lot of healthy minerals. It also has a lot of collagen in it, which can help your skin and your hair, because that's where it's made from bones that have that collagen. And then in the middle, people often don't think about meatballs for breakfast, but that's actually can be meatballs you can eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I know it sounds crazy, but you can get pork sausage and make meatballs, or do a blend of pork and turkey, ground turkey. And so anyway, meatballs are kind of a fun and easy thing. You can make them in advance and then just heat them up for breakfast. So those are a couple of things for breakfast. And I think I saw, did somebody post a chat? Yes. So what about yogurt for protein? That's a good question. So yogurt is great, but it has sugar in it. So the thing to do is to get a Greek yogurt that has 2% or more fat, because a couple of things. Yogurt, if it's a skim milk yogurt, it tends to have more sugar naturally, even without sweetener. And also and you really want to try and avoid sugar in places that are you're not planning on it as much as you can. So that's it has a lot of whey protein, which is a great source of protein. So just go for unsweetened and add berries to it. You can even have a couple drops of liquid stevia to it, some nut butter to it, and it's a nice source of protein. And then ground hemp seeds and chia seeds. So they are great for a lot of things. They tend to not necessarily have a ton of protein, and they don't all have the amino acids that you need necessarily to build muscle. They don't have the branch chain amino acids. You typically have to combine lots of nuts and seeds with, I actually, in my programs, I teach how to kind of combine like lentils with quinoa, and they see rice and beans, and those make complete proteins. So they're not a complete protein, but they're a great source of healthy fat, and they're not necessarily, so I definitely eat them. Add them to your yogurt. Add them to your smoothies that are made with Greek yogurt or made with whey protein powder, and then they'd be a great addition. Okay, and then, so eat mindfully and make yourself accountable is really the last tip. So to talk about eat mindfully, one thing I think is really important for people in order to manage their weight is to really understand, really be aware of how they're feeling before, during, and after a meal. So when I say how they're feeling before, how do you really feel now? Are you really hungry? Like, truly think about it. Most likely, if you just want that cookie or something sweet, you're not hungry. If you're hungry, you're willing to eat healthier foods. But if you're just kind of thinking, oh, I want something that maybe isn't always the healthiest, then you're probably not hungry. You just maybe are head hungry. So that's one thing to think about. Also, while you're eating, it's a good idea to put your fork down in between bites. It'll help you eat more slowly. It'll help you be more aware of how the food is tasting when you're chewing it. It was great. A couple weeks ago, Maria had a meditation, and she actually had us all chew on a blueberry. And she had us take, it was a Tuesday morning meditation at HAYVN. And so she had us chew on it slowly like suck on it first and then chew on it and really feel the blueberry burst in your mouth and taste the sweetness of it. It was such a different experience versus just taking it. She had us take another blueberry and just chew it right away and swallow it. So try doing that sometime and you'll see there's just a huge difference. Another thing too you might want to do is just really try and plan time to eat. Like if you plan, I'm going to have my lunch a certain time, give yourself some time to prep it if you haven't already. Sit away from your computer and just go eat. Sit outside, especially now. You'll really realize that you have eaten versus just eating on the go. Then a lot of times you don't even remember what you ate and you won't have that experience of feeling like you're eating it. And then talking about accountability, that's the second part of this. This is a food and mood diary, and I like this one in particular because it actually has sections that say, how did you feel before you ate? How did you feel after you ate? And what you ate also. So that's the benefit of having a paper diary versus something like a MyFitnessPal, which I also like because it gives you all the nutritional information in your diary, but it's not as effective in terms of helping you be mindful. But it's really interesting because I found an article that a study, there were 2 different studies. One mentioned that 70% of people who maintained their weight loss for 2 years had started keeping a food diary when they were trying to lose weight. And then 2 years later, they were still 70% of those had maintained that weight and were still keeping it. And there was another study also mentioned that 1,700 people, they were in a weight loss program that took place over 6 months. And the people who kept food diaries lost twice as much weight as those people who didn't. So food diaries are huge. And one thing that's great also about MyFitnessPal specifically is you can actually share that with a friend or what we do. I actually have a program called Stay Healthy at Home. And my co-leader and I actually hold people accountable by checking in on their food diary twice a week and giving them tips on what they're eating. So that's just another. So anyway, food diaries are really great, and you can do them either this way to kind of the paper ones to stay mindful, or MyFitnessPal can really help you see exactly what you're eating and the content of what you're eating, and you can have you and your friend could trade diaries to really keep yourself accountable. Okay, my screen is not changing. Sorry about this. Come on. Sorry. Sometimes this happens. Well, anyway, that was my, here we go. Now it doesn't want to, there we go. Sorry about that. So thank you so much for listening. Any other questions before we finish? Other thoughts? I know that was quick.
Great. Well, thank you, Amy. I'm just looking too. I wanted to mention you're having your kickstart through the Y on September 16th.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so we're kind of wrapping our September health program around what the Y is doing as well. So you can fit. We're having, I think it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Was it Tuesdays, Mondays and Wednesdays, or Tuesdays and Thursdays, the Y class?
I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah, it's actually it's the class for nutrition is going to be on Wednesdays, and I think Tuesday, Thursday is going to be the fitness class.
Oh, okay, great. So we're trying to wrap some things around so we can be work with the Y on this program for the whole month of September Health. So
yeah, and it's great because so the difference between these 2 programs is Stay Healthy at Home has a little more accountability aspect. Fall Kickstart in terms of personal attention for accountability, but the Fall Kickstart has Jess and Skyver, who's amazing for fitness. So there's a really nice fitness component to that as well as nutrition. So they're they're good options, and it's fun. I did something called Lean Machine through the Y, and we actually had a group at HAYVN. Unfortunately, now that we're, a lot of it's virtual, but we're going to have a good group, and it'll be a virtual session at night instead of in person.